Joining us in studio for more is Reserves IDF Brigadier General Israel Relik Shafir. He's the former commander of the Tel Nof Air Force Base and a former combat pilot, and our senior defense correspondent, Jonathan Regev. And Jonathan, that tunnel, it's a piece of work. I have actually once got a chance to be inside when they were cleaning it out, Israel's national water carrier, the huge big pipe that brings almost all of Israel's water in the south from the Kinneret. And it's about the dimensions of that tunnel.
Pretty much. Very, very wide. Cars could easily go by. We wondered how so many terrorists, how so many vans got just so close to the Israeli border. This is the answer. This is one tunnel that I've seen. Are there others of this dimension, maybe a bit smaller? Probably yes. Now, some more images that come out today. The people responsible for these images, we can see perhaps the men driving there inside this tunnel. The men sitting right next to him, I'm sorry, is Mohammed Sinwar.
And they're driving inside the tunnel.
Mohammed Sinwar, if the last name sounds familiar, it's not by chance. The brother of Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas in Gaza, he was the man responsible for building this tunnel. They are driving in a car, comfortably driving, inside the tunnel that we've seen. So when so many people asked, how was it possible for so many vans to drive right up to the Israeli border without being detected? This is the answer in tunnels such as this one. It's a huge infrastructure. It's a huge infrastructure project. People from the engineer corps that I've been speaking with said that a project of this kind takes at least three years to build, tens of millions of dollars. And here we can see this is Hamas footage obtained by the Israeli army in the operation in Gaza. This is actual Hamas footage of the digging of this tunnel. Doors, there are many hideouts within this tunnel. The tunnel was ready for use. There's electricity, there's water, there's ventilation, there's everything you need. There are different rooms to pile up ammunition, weapons, for example. Here we're seeing one of them. Everything you can imagine. Tens of millions of dollars. There you can see various extensions inside this tunnel. Hideouts, weapons could be here. Possibly hostages could be here. We don't know exactly where they are. This is one tunnel. There are many such tunnels. Hostages could be there. A huge infrastructure. And we spoke here so many times, Calev, about the money envelopes coming into Gaza, right? Those $100 a month going supposedly to families.
Right.
Were they going to families? When we see this, I think the answer is no. This is where the money went through, and this is just as we saw in the story. This is the distance from the areas crossing, very close. And huge dimensions. This tunnel was now unveiled by the IDF. A huge project costing millions and millions of dollars. All this money, all this concrete, for example, cement, that could be used for hospitals, for new homes in Gaza, for schools, for mosques, for anything, for welfare. This is what it is being used for.
And Relik, seeing an installation of this kind is daunting, especially since we have to consider there may be more, and certainly are going to be more, for example, when Israel has to deal with the southern half of the Gaza Strip, places like Khan Yunis.
Yes, but I would not be too excited by this. We knew that this was taking place. Sure. We knew that the cement was used for this. There's really nothing surprising that was not known before. And Hamas had been readying itself for a time like this for quite a while, as well as Hezbollah up in the north.
Right.
We know of one big tunnel that was discovered up in the north, and there may be some more. So we should not underestimate the task ahead of us. We should not underestimate the abilities of Hamas and Hezbollah, as has been proven in this particular war. And we shouldn't complain, because they are arch enemies. They said they're going to go for us whenever they can, and they did. So we were somewhat dormant, taking this seriously. Too much patting on our own back.
Well, then we are complaining then about that.
And this is what war is all about.
Right. but shouldn't have waited decades for this moment to come, maybe too long, to give to Hamas to prepare for it. Let's go to our correspondent, Pia Steckelbach, who is down south near the Gaza border. Just daunting seeing the task, seeing that tunnel. Pia, fighting goes on there, not far from you, still in northern Gaza. You could understand it, seeing that kind of tunnel. And of course, we've seen over the weekend this tragic incident with the hostages in Gaza, just how much still has to be done, even as Israel is trying to push on now into Khan Yunis in the south.
Right, you're right to say, Calev, that fighting is going on really all across the Gaza Strip. Of course, in Khan Yunis in the south, then in Shuja'iyya in central Gaza, but also operations are continuously going on in the north. We can look into Bet Lahia, Bet Hanun, from where we're at right now here from Sderot. You can look into northern Gaza, and about 2 hours ago, we could see that latest barrage of rockets that was launched from Gaza going out into Israel, targeting communities east of Ashkelon, and we could actually see that those rockets were getting launched from the northern part of Gaza, not very far away from here. This is despite the IDF saying that they have at least operational control over northern Gaza, but still Hamas is able to launch rockets from exactly that area onto Israel. And we have seen that although the pace has become a bit slower, there were about 3 alerts throughout today. The Hamas is still showcasing its ability, its capacity to fire rockets onto central Israel and even onto Jerusalem, as we've seen last Saturday. Now, the fighting here in the north is really focused on destroying Hamas's infrastructure and the infrastructure of other Palestinian militias. We're speaking about the destruction and, first of all, a discovery of more of those tunnels, of that vast tunnel system, and, of course, the destruction here in northern Gaza, but also destruction of weapon ammunition depots. That is what the operation in the north here is focused on. But, of course, there is fighting going on also in Shuja'iyya, an urban environment, a very the entire Gaza Strip is very densely populated. And this is a really close-knit neighborhood as well, which poses immense challenges to those IDF soldiers operating there on the ground. This is also, of course, where in an ambush last week, 9 soldiers all at once were killed, because this just shows you how great the danger of ambushes are or is in such a densely built environment.
All right, Pia Steckelbach there by the Gaza border in southern Israel and Sderot. Thank you for that. And Relik, hearing, as Pia is saying, seeing those rockets still being fired from northern Gaza, but then you see those tunnels and you understand perhaps, at least in some ways, how they're able to still act. Those units, or the Hamas units, are still able to enact even in the northern half of the Strip.
Yes, but we should, let's take a little balanced look. Hamas and Hezbollah have no air force, no tanks, no armored vehicles.
Right.
They're fighting from tunnels. They're using human shields. And they've taken a toll of several thousand. Terrorists have already been killed.
Right.
So the ratio that we're talking about and the devastation of Gaza reflects the balance of power between Israel and Hamas. And if we have to fight Hezbollah in the north, it'll be a little different, but not much different. Remember that we have the shields from their rockets, and very few Israelis were hit.
Right.
So let's balance it. Israel is a lot more powerful. And although we are kind of looking through spectacles at everything that happens in Gaza, and we're all seeing what war is all about. But at the end of the day, we're way overpowering Gaza in any way you want to choose.
I don't think it's a question of the feeling that the IDF can't handle this situation. I guess it's more a question of the cost that it's going to have. And then there is, again, the time element. Because there is a time element at play here. There is a so-called diplomatic window. And clearly, when you see something like that, you understand why, for example, I'm sorry, the IDF spokesperson, Daniel Hagari, is about to speak. Let's take a listen.
Good evening. Today we exposed a special mission of the IDF forces detecting the largest terror tunnel found so far in the Gaza Strip. special units along with infantry, led by the Gaza division, led the force. It's a network, a vast network of tunnels costing millions of dollars, and tens of terrorists built it. This project was led by Muhammad Sinwar, the brother of Yahya Sinwar. He led it personally. So far, we exposed more than 4 kilometers of the path of this tunnel. It's a flagship project for Hamas. It's 50 meters deep, under the ground. Inside the tunnel, we found weapons, ammunition. The tunnel did not cross into Israel. It came very close to the Erez crossing, the place that allowed many Palestinians crossing into Israel for work and for medical assistance. Hamas on the 7th of October chose to slaughter this place, this crossing that was a place for hope for Palestinians. That was the choice of Hamas. It's not a regular tunnel, it's a city, a terror city under the ground. Hamas built it instead of investing the money in the citizens of Gaza. The tunnel detected was used for offensive purposes against our forces in the Gaza Strip. A few days ago, there were images of terrorists killed inside a tunnel. We will soon enough expose more underground cities. We will take care of them, we will kill terrorists there, and we will destroy them. Our forces continue to fight Hamas in the northern Gaza Strip and in the southern Gaza Strip, anywhere where there are terrorists. Today there were statements from Hamas officials saying they will return hostages only after the fire will end. It is important to stress, the IDF will continue to dismantle Hamas. Our forces continue to act bravely all over the Gaza Strip. The statements of Hamas regarding the hostages show that Hamas is worse than ISIS. Who would hold women, elderly, children, citizens? Only a murderous terror organization like Hamas. We have the moral responsibility to do everything to bring back all of the hostages back home. And we continue to act and do every effort possible with intelligence, with the operations and other means, with all the power to achieve this goal. Today we showed images of a home that the 3 hostages were kept very close to the place where the tragedy took place on Friday. We don't know how long they were there. We're inspecting another home where they possibly were. We're continuing to investigate this incident and learn the lessons. The Chief of Staff was on the ground with the soldiers, and he spoke about the initial conclusions of this incident. We continue to support the families in this very difficult hours. In the north, we attacked various sites of Hezbollah in Lebanon, weapon depots, and other installations. We also attacked terror squads in Lebanon. We attacked more than 120 terror squads since the beginning of the war. South Lebanon today is a war zone and will continue to be so as long as Hezbollah will continue to be spread there and attack from there. The citizens of southern Lebanon know that, and they will continue to feel our attacks as long as Hezbollah terrorists are there. This will be a war zone. Today in the afternoon, a terrorist stabbed a reserve officer near the village of Rantis. The reserve officer chased him and opened fire. Later on, our forces captured the terrorist. And in the refugee camp of Ashams, we conducted another operation where we attacked from the air a terror squad which put our forces in danger. We carried out arrests and confiscated weaponry. We will continue to fight terrorism in the West Bank and in every possible arena. In the home front, I call the citizens, the residents, to keep on watching the home front instructions. We have to remember that even if there are less and less rockets, Hamas still has the ability to fire. Moreover, there was supposedly a document by the IDF which says that residents can go back to the Gaza border communities. It's a rough draft that we are inspecting together with the heads of communities in the south. This is nothing official yet. When we make a decision, an official decision, we will update the residents, the citizens. Please be patient and we will update when things are final. Question now. You're telling us that you exposed a giant tunnel on the border fence. Can you please speak about the intelligence failure of how this tunnel was not detected for so long, if it was built for so long, and what's the probability that there are more tunnels of this kind that we're not aware of? This is just one of various projects. There are a few places. We've looked at 3 arenas. We will expose the other arenas where we think there are tunnels of this kind, terror cities. Within this operation, we're being asked, why is this war taking so long? And the answer is that we're dealing with terror cities under the ground as just together with the fighting on the ground. And we want to permanently destroy these terror tunnels, and it takes time. Regarding this specific tunnel, it was a flagship project of Mohammed Sinwar. Some of it may have been attacked in the past and reconstructed. I cannot give all of the information we have so far, but the bottom line is that this is a project, a flagship project that was waiting to attack the Erez crossing. It was used during this war after the October 7th attack. We exposed it, we killed terrorists there, and we will continue to expose more infrastructure and expose their underground infrastructure.
All right, we just heard the IDF spokesperson, Rear Admiral Daniel Agari, give his nightly briefing, focusing on that, as we've been reporting, that giant terror tunnel that was detected by the IDF. He also, by the way, some news there, the spokesperson referring to a plan that would allow some residents of the Gaza Strip border area, the Gaza envelope, return to their homes. That actually is the first even indication we've had of that from the IDF, though it has to be said, many of those homes are not there to return to. Were destroyed, of course, by Hamas. And just to pick up on the point that I mentioned, that the threat of the tunnels, of course, just indicates just the dimensions of the task ahead for the IDF and the timetable, as even the Admiral Hagari said, and that this is an operation that is going to take a considerable amount of time, maybe more than some people expect it to.
That is true, but if we're holding that area, I'm not talking about the tunnels.
Right, I understand.
But the general area, we won't need so much aerial support once you control the area.
Right.
And it's just a question of getting down to those tunnels, neutralizing them, etc., which is a delicate task.
And potentially costly.
True. And that is why it's going to be a lower intensity war above the ground with a higher intensity dealing with the tunnels underground in various measures. You don't have to go in with soldiers in order to take them out, and we won't go into details how this is
right.
going
So I'll just add some reports about just for some pumping seawater, for example, one example of one measure that's been reported, but others certainly the IDF will have. They won't make public. Relik Shafir, stay with us, and Jonathan Regev, we are going out for a brief break. We'll be back just in a few minutes with lots more of our coverage. Israel's war against Hamas on day 72. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
must reach the whole world. The i24 News channel, broadcasting from Israel, with dozens of correspondents throughout the world, brings the truth from Israel to hundreds of millions of people in scores of countries.
Completely gunned down in their beds.
De la frontière qui sépare Israël.
The state of emergency and war in Israel.
Bringing Israel's story to the world. i24 News channels. Now on Hot.
Amazing. So, shout out to our organisers.
Welcome back to this special broadcast on i24 News. Now, we spent all the half hour really focusing on the central Gaza battlefield. But again, more action along Israel's northern border. As we reported, airstrike by the IDF against the terror unit trying to fire anti-tank missiles. And of course, that aerial attack still going on. Let's go to Zach Anders in northern Israel. And Zach, again, another day, another volley of cross-border firings. The IDF apparently taking out a unit there that was firing or getting ready to fire those anti-tank missiles that really have been perhaps the most dangerous weapon for Israel that we've seen fired across the northern border.
And they will continue to be a threat so long as Hezbollah is allowed within a few miles of the border, because that's the range of these ATGMs. Now, remember that they're designed to penetrate the armor of tanks, so they don't explode when they initially hit their target. They're designed to penetrate thick layers of steel and then explode after the penetration. So it is a serious weapon, and it has that range launched by personnel on the ground of several miles, just like mortars and artillery does. So this buffer that the Israelis are trying to create, at least to start, and the language that we're hearing come out of talks with the U.S., France, the U.K., is that they want to start with just a several miles buffer along the border, along this blue line with the UN agreement between Lebanon and Israel, and then begin to push Hezbollah back above the Litani River, which is, again, that UNSC 1701, the United Nations Security Council agreement from 2006. Does not appear that there's been any movement on those talks. Hezbollah does seem to be scoffing at even the idea, again, repeating claims that we've heard for decades, especially during the 2006 war, that they lay claim to this territory. They believe that northern Israel is a part of southern Lebanon. So this is another stalemate here.
Right, and Zach, we maybe have to point out the IDF spokesperson, Admiral Hagari, this evening, for the first time talking about the IDF looking at a plan that would allow some of the residents of the so-called Gaza envelope, that area and probably more around northern Gaza, where IDF has established some control, to start going back to some of their communities and homes, those that still exist. But of course, no such indication at all of that possibility for the residents in the north, tens of thousands that still are basically internal refugees here in Israel.
Right. The last update we got for these residents was a week ago, with Defense Minister Gallant speaking that this will be a very long, time-consuming process, and asking for these residents to have patience. Perhaps there's been some movement that could indicate what's happening here for these residents to be able to decide what their future is, because there appeared a large military exercise today, one in scale that we have not seen since October 7th. The forces that have been placed here have been placed in really a defensive posture, and you've noted that the strikes have been mostly retaliatory, but they have picked up offensively quite a bit in the last week or so, with targeting Hezbollah before they are able to fire these ATGMs, before they fire on northern Israel. So it is curious to see this level of military exercises taking place here. Some of the outside observers and assessments, especially out of the U.S., are very concerned about the developments here, especially with the movement from Hezbollah that they're seeing. And it does appear that the IDF and the Israelis are following suit and matching that posture.
All right, Zach Anders there along the northern border with Lebanon. Thank you for that. Relik, what about that? We have this exercise that Zach mentioned along the northern, in the northern border area. We have, as he mentioned, Israel may be moving to more of an offensive deterrent posture, trying to strike these units rather than just react to the firing. Message to Hezbollah, but what kind of... But is that a deterrence, or is it liable to provoke Hezbollah to, for example, widen their field of fire beyond that sort of border area?
Obviously, the IDF is positioning itself to clear out the area between the border and the Litani River, because the 100,000 people who were displaced from their homes won't go back with Hezbollah on the border, or even in an eye contact with houses in Metula or Kiryat Shmona or other villages. And this will be the end game. So the question is how to get there. The order of the day is that diplomatic and political means through France, United States, to convince Hezbollah that this is serious.
Right. I'm just going to add, because we're going to discuss it later in the program, the French Foreign Minister, Catherine Colonna, in Israel today, supposedly is going to, I believe, to Lebanon to see if she can move things. The Lebanese government may be amenable to that, but as Zach pointed out, Hezbollah acts as its own government. So, you know, so far those diplomatic efforts haven't proven useful.
That is true, but these efforts precede the military onslaught. And that's the name of the game. You try, you show that you've tried everything, and when push comes to shove, then we'll go into a more offensive posture, but try to stay below something that will force Hezbollah to open a full-scale war and fire their tens of thousands of rockets to Israel, which will force Israel to eradicate part of the Hezbollah part in Beirut, and take out their infrastructure. That is totally different from what happens in Gaza, because Lebanon is still a semi-European.
No, it's a sovereign country. Never mind, even it's a sovereign country.
They have infrastructure. Yes. And it's not there's no urban area between Israel and the Litani.
Right.
So it's a free field, totally different and a lot faster than anything that we've seen.
That's what I ask you. You are, of course, senior commander from the Air Force. Would air power be enough, or would Israel have to put some boots on the ground in southern Lebanon, as it did in the Second Lebanon War, to mixed effect? It's hard to imagine that while the ground forces are so engaged in Gaza.
My opinion is it can be done from the air in this particular case. Unlike the 2006, the type of information that we have and our ability to wield power, a lot of power, in a short time range is a lot better than it was.
Right, and improved air defenses also, perhaps,
True
from the
as
Arrow
well.
and
Even
Davis
though
Link.
we should expect to see a lot of missiles shot at Israel,
Right.
but I think we can overpower the Hezbollah a lot faster than Hamas because of the different nature of the ground.
Right. We're showing a map, actually, of Lebanon, and you could see pushing into Litani. There are those who feel, Jonathan, that what Relik just described is just a matter of time, that it's inevitable. I'm pessimistic about these diplomatic efforts spearheaded mainly by the U.S. and France, and that either during this war or the next war, Israel's going to have to take care of that issue.
And say that the diplomatic efforts succeed, and Hezbollah moves past the Litani River.
Sure.
Is that going to stay? Is that going to be the case for 2 years, 3 years, 10 years? The answer is probably no.
Sure.
In Gaza, we've said time and time again. We know that the next operation is just around the corner, something that was not said about Lebanon up until 2 years ago, I think. And now things have changed, and we see that Hezbollah is a threat. First, Israel cannot live with Hezbollah on the fence, period. That's something that cannot happen anymore. And second, even if Hezbollah is not on the fence, so they were back there in 2006. Eventually, step by step, Hezbollah got closer until it got to the fence. That is one issue. Second issue, we see that when there's a conflict, now it's with Gaza. Next time it could be with the West Bank or with Syria or with someone else, and of course with Iran. Hezbollah comes in and joins the party. So can Israel live with this forever and ever? The answer is no. So it may happen now. It may happen in 2 years, 3 years. One day it will probably happen, because Hezbollah will never ever accept the presence of the state of Israel, and will one day try to attack.
Sure.
It's a war that is bound to happen one day or the other.
Right. You mentioned a couple of Iranian proxies there in Hezbollah, its forces and militias in Syria, Iraq too, we could say. And then there's another, let's not forget, the Houthi rebels in Yemen, who are stepping up their campaign in those waters, those key coastal waters off of Yemen. Now, two of the world's largest shipping firms, the Mediterranean Shipping Company and CGM, just announced this weekend that they were suspending passage of their vessels through the Red Sea after attacks by those Iranian-backed Houthis in Yemen. Now, the announcement follows similar decisions by other major shipping companies, which is threatening freedom of navigation in one of the world's most vital trade arteries, not just for Israel, but for other countries in the region and the world. Our Middle East correspondent Ariel Osron has more on the implications of that in this report.
The world's biggest shipping companies are diverting their ships away from the Red Sea amid increased attacks by the Houthis in Yemen. The tidal wave of announcements comes as the US and British navies shot down 15 suspected attack drones over the Red Sea on Saturday. The Iranian-backed Houthis said they launched a large batch of drones at Israel's southern city of Eilat and will continue their attacks as long as the war in Gaza carries on.
The Yemeni armed forces assure all ships heading to all ports around the world, except for the Israeli ports, that they won't be harmed but must keep their identifying devices open.
The Mediterranean shipping carrier MSC, along with French CMA CGM, said on Saturday that they were suspending passage to the Red Sea. This followed similar steps by Danish shipping giant Maersk, German-based shipper Hapag-Lloyd, Taiwanese Yangming, and Israeli shipping line Tzim, raising concern over the impact of the flow of goods through the major global trade corridor connecting Asia and Europe.
The Houthis represent a material threat to freedom of navigation, to commercial shipping, to lawful commerce, and they're doing so in a vital artery there at the Bab el-Mandeb and into the Red Sea. And the United States is working with the international community, with partners from the region and from all over the world to deal with this threat.
Despite the expected blow to its economy, Israeli leaders say they will respond to the Houthis' attacks in due course.
We are ready to act. We know what to do, and we will find the right timing to act. We are giving a chance in the maritime issue to the international system. If we reach a situation where we are the last option, we will know what to do.
And so, as the scale and frequency of Houthi attacks on Red Sea shipping reach unprecedented levels, the Pentagon is reportedly weighing its striking options. But after years of reluctance to act against Iran's proxies, these steps might turn out to be too little and too late.
And we should note the U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin is scheduled to come to Israel this week, certainly to deal with the Gaza situation and that situation in northern Israel with Hezbollah, but also the Houthi attacks in the Red Sea area. And Relik, let's look at that. We heard Yoav Gallant talking about Israel striking, but this is really an international issue. The U.S., France, it's also getting involved, all defensively. The question is if it's time for them to take some kind of offensive action against the Houthis, which presumably would be some kind of using air power. Certainly they don't want to put boots on the ground inside Yemen.
Yes, that's for sure. Remember that Bab el-Mandeb's distance from Israel is farther than Tehran. So
Right.
it's not a next door
Right,
neighbor.
thousands of kilometers.
Yes.
Yeah.
So our ability to get real-time information or intelligence and strike there is obviously present, but I don't think we can take out the missiles or whatever the infrastructure there. So we better leave that to other nations, and the consortium that seems to be getting along with the U.S. leading it and France and other countries probably can take care of this.
But will
with the
they?
Fifth
I mean, I'm
Fleet.
just going to note that last week, I think it was a group of former CENTCOM commanders said it is time for the U.S. to strike, or as U.S. leading an international coalition. Why hasn't that strike been taken? Presumably they have the air power to at least take out the some of the missile capabilities and certainly naval capabilities there of the Houthis.
Well, something to think about. The Houthis are not alone in this game. They're actually being operated by as proxies by Iran. So maybe it's time to let Iran know, or a small military operation at the Hormuz Straits along the Iranian border, because this is going to continue and Iran is going to continue playing. So do they deal with the Houthis or do they go to their operator? If they deal with the Houthis, technically, militarily, they shouldn't have a problem. So it's a question of decision. And in this case, it's the president's decision as the commander-in-chief in the U.S.
Right. I mean, there are those, Jonathan, who see that hesitation. I mean, the scenario is laid out by Relik, and that hesitation by the U.S. is the Biden administration's policy of trying to engage Iran rather than take it on more directly. And perhaps in this case, that emboldened Iran and the Houthis to start attacking this international shipping there in the Red Sea.
Yes, it is already happening. We're seeing ships being attacked there. We're seeing companies, we saw that in the story, saying they will not use this passage. It's and let's remember, it's a major passage from the Indian Ocean into the Red Sea, the Suez Canal, and into the Mediterranean. It's a major shipping route which is now put under danger, and many in Israel feel that the international coalition led by the United States is not doing enough. One other thing, let's remember that Israel went to the 6-day war because the Straits of Tiran, being much closer to Israel, of course, were blocked thus
by Egypt in that case. Yeah.
From Egypt in that case, thus blocking the passage of ships to Eilat, to the port of Eilat. Are we speaking pretty much of the same? Someone blocking the passage to Eilat. Of course, the distance to Bab el-Mandab, to Yemen, being much farther. The situation is, of course, different, but there is a precedent in which Israel went to war, technically, because these straits were blocked.
Right. We should note, actually, it's Egypt and it's Suez Canal, which is even more, perhaps, negatively affected.
I think they're affected even more than Israel, because much of the passage through the Suez Canal, which is giving Egypt a lot of money, will now be diverted.
Right. And there is talk already of diverting even a land bridge through the United Arab Emirates, through Jordan, for example, into Israel. So that is the... People are talking about it. That's being denied. Gentlemen, stay with us. Earlier, just this evening, we heard Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari being grilled by reporters. Why didn't Israel detect that massive tunnel that was just revealed in Gaza, that was just revealed to the world today? And Israeli security and military officials have acknowledged intelligence failures that allowed Hamas to plan and execute the October 7th attacks. But new details have now emerged in a report from the New York Times, also describing how Hamas financed its activities with a portfolio of international investments, a financial network that Israeli leaders were allegedly aware of but did not shut down. Robert Swift takes a closer look at that.
As early as 2015, Israeli and US officials became aware of a network of companies that not only funded Hamas, but were owned and controlled by it. An empire that was worth an estimated $500 million. While organizations like ISIS and Al-Qaeda have frequently used fronts to launder money, Hamas's portfolio was a genuine enterprise, launched with seed money to go out to make a profit, the New York Times reports. It reportedly included mining, chicken farming, and road building firms in Sudan, 2 skyscrapers in the United Arab Emirates, a property developer in Algeria, and Trend, a real estate company listed on the Turkish Stock Exchange. An Israeli financial intelligence team, Task Force Harpoon, began tracking the investments, flagging up their concerns to US counterparts and the Israeli cabinet. But the threat from Iran and the finances it distributed to its proxies, Hamas among them, ultimately eclipsed fears over the Hamas portfolio. And at the time, the Israeli Security Service's consensus was that money flowing into Gaza would help tame Hamas, rather than arming it for the next attack. A strategy led by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Regarding this published investigation, I am not familiar with it, and I suggest you wait until after the war. A thorough examination and a thorough investigation of all these things will be done, and the picture will become clearer.
While there were some sanctions placed on businesses and individuals in 2022, ultimately the flow of money from it was not disrupted. Money that Israeli intelligence assesses was directly invested into Hamas's military preparations.
Jonathan, we should note this information is based on a press report. We don't know the full circumstances. We don't know how much Israel knew, how much perhaps the Mossad or other agencies did actually deal with it. But I think the bigger picture here, as we saw in the that was raised, of course, by Robert, is this whole question, this conception that Hamas, in a sense, could be that its financial interests were great enough that it would not take a risk like it did on October 7th to bring that house tumbling down, a conception that we now know was badly mistaken.
Absolutely, and let's look more than that. It was all the time thought that Hamas would put first the interests of the citizens of Gaza. That is why it was thought that more work permits in Israel would do the job. More money coming in
from Qatar.
More money from Qatar going into Gaza would do the job. These images that we're seeing now, we're seeing exactly where the money came. The money went to, not for the residents of Gaza, for this. The workers coming in, we know that many of them were actually, I'll even call them spies, as much as that of what is happening in the communities and in the bases inside Israel. All the conception that Israel had of Hamas was completely wrong. The citizens of Gaza, they mean nothing to them, nothing more than human shields. That's all they are for them. And I don't think they really did much to hide that. We heard a few weeks ago from one of the Hamas officials saying, yes, we took all the money and all the assistance for our tunnels underground, because the people overground, they're refugees. It's the United Nations that should take care of them, and the assistance, everything that we get, this is used for our projects.
I think, Relik, what is a little frightening here is, go ahead, respond to.
Yes, I think this is, we're letting ourselves easy on that one.
It doesn't sound so easy to me, to be honest. I think we're being very critical, but go ahead.
Sadat, before the 73 war, said he's willing to put the lives of 1 million Egyptians to get the Sinai back, okay? And he meant what he said.
Right.
Hamas, their ideology is to fight Israel, even if it takes 100 years. And for them, as by the way, for other nations who'd gone to war in Second World War, etc., the idea of bringing a better future or some hope is more important than the lives of people. So this was all well known.
Right.
The money was coming in from Qatar and Iran anyway. So with all due respect to those 500 million in investments, that wouldn't have stopped the money. The basic thing that Israel has to deal with is the idea that we have weakened the Palestinian Authority and strengthened Hamas in order to stay, for the Palestinian Authority to stay weak, so that we can ward off the danger, so to speak, of a Palestinian entity in the West Bank. This was a decision made by our leaders at the time, and certainly Netanyahu. And in a way, this is a day of reckoning. We have to decide which we would prefer, if any.
All right. Well, this does go in the area of political decision making, which is still going on. In fact, it's still, because this relates to the argument about how much, whether, if and when the Palestinian Authority, if and then it comes to this so-called decide who will maintain civil authority in the Gaza Strip, whether it be the Palestinian Authority or not. No easy choices to make. But we'll put that aside for now. I just want to go back to the unfortunate, tragic incident this weekend, the revelation of the 3 escaped hostages who were shot down by IDF troops, apparently mistakenly. Unfortunately, each new detail that comes out paints that in a more and more negative light. The actions of those troops, but we could understand whether the hearing that the soldiers were waving a white flag, they were not hostages, I'm sorry, speaking in Hebrew, wearing shirts. There was, I think, a photograph that come out, we don't know if we have it, in which they scrawled SOS basically on the side of a building. That maybe explain this picture, Jonathan.
Yeah, it says SOS and in English, and it says 3 hostages in Hebrew. This is the place. We heard from Rear Admiral Daniel Agari in his briefing, speaking about this place, saying that very close to the place that these 3 hostages were shot, this home was found with these paintings on the wall. I'll call them this way, and there's a possibility that they were also held in a nearby place. This was found now.
The point being, there should have been enough information available for those soldiers to hold their fire at that circumstances. We only have 30 seconds, Relik, but it's hard to make that judgment.
While this, and when we look at this, it's not a very clear writing. But while saying this, there were also a lot of booby-trapped dolls speaking Hebrew and other ways to lure those warriors. So it's not something that we can categorically say that a soldier wouldn't feel that he's being heisted, so to speak.
Right, okay. Well, there'll be a thorough investigation, of course, on this. Relik Shafir, thank you for joining us on i24news.